What's going on, everybody? Today we are going to be working on the TJ here at Rob's shop. We're going to be taking out the limited slip carrier and the welded spider gears and putting in an open carrier and a mini spool that we got from East Coast Gear Supply. The spider gears have been welded ever since we put the axle in the Jeep maybe 3 years ago, I believe. It ran for about 2 years with zero issues. The welds broke in there, and so we welded it back up and went on a trip, and it actually made it through the trip, but when I was driving it on the road, it actually broke free again and unlocked. So we welded it up again before the last trip, and we went pretty hard on it last trip, and then I realized the other day that they were broken again. So tired of dealing with that, so we just are gonna go with the mini spool. Same functionality, still very affordable. I think I got a used carrier from East Coast Gear Supply and the mini spool with shipping and all, it was still like 150 bucks. So very affordable way to lock the rear end in your Jeep. All right, well, I'm gonna get to work on tearing this apart. Rob should be home from church pretty shortly. I was supposed to be here an hour ago and have this torn down by the time he got here, but had to run some errands, had to go to AutoZone, get gear oil, some RTV, stuff like that. So anyway, I'm here now. I'm gonna get this torn down real quick. All right, now that the diff cover is off, we're gonna let it drain and we're gonna pop the tires off and then get the brakes and everything taken off so we can get ready to get in there and pull the C-clips and slide the axle shafts out. All right, well, now that we got the brakes off, we can pull the pin on the carrier and push the axle shafts in and pull the C-clips and slide the shafts out so we can get ready to remove the carrier. So before we take the carrier out, we're gonna see what the backlash is currently set at, and we're gonna try to match it with the new open carrier. All right, so to pull the pin, you have to remove this bolt right here. Dude, I've never had to...
I see it moving.
Okay. Now it's coming. Yeah, probably be able to pull it out now. So now that that is out, we can push the axle shafts in and pull the C-clip out. Oh, I got you.
Just pop it off, maybe. Keep from having to hit it with anything.
Okay, so Rob made it back from church just in time to help me get the shafts and everything pulled. So now he's about to show us how to check the current backlash so we can get the new carrier as close as possible to how it currently is.
That's it, yeah. I'm no expert. I've done it a couple times and I have the tools, so we're gonna kind of walk through it and figure it out.
All right, here we go.
This is a magnetic base. That's what the box says. And this is a dial indicator. You can kind of see how the dial moves. It's super sensitive. So we're gonna set it up. We're gonna adjust it to 0. There's got a little dial here to set it. And then we'll rotate the ring gear back and forth and let the teeth engage with this and push it. And we're gonna see what it measures at. And then when we put it back together, we're gonna try to match it up close to the same as what it was. So
That's pretty close. And so you can adjust all this stuff too.
So what you're doing right now is getting it on the very end of the tooth?
That's right. To where it's like about to where it's sitting right against it, but it's at 0.
Yeah.
So that you get the accurate reading.
when we pull these caps off, make sure we keep the orientation the same. So
yeah.
Right and left, You need to make sure they're stayed right and left, and then there's arrows going out, pointing to the outside on both of these, so we'll just have to remember to do that.
When pulling the carrier, it helps to have a small pry bar with a good angle on it so you can get behind the carrier. The carrier is in there tight, so when it starts to move, it'll want to shoot out. You can't see it in the video, but I have a box and some thick paper packing under it for it to fall on. All right, so we got the carrier out and we're getting it onto the table. We have to knock the tone ring off of the new open carrier. I think we can just do that with a sledgehammer. So we're gonna get that done and then get the pin and the spider gears out of the open carrier so we can get ready to load the spool into it. We also have to press the bearings onto it. Anything else we have to do?
Guess that's it.
That'll be it. The backlash was 3/1000 is what Rob measured on the indicator. So we're gonna try to use, when we pulled it apart actually, it only had the factory shims in there, no additional shims, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it didn't have any extra shims in there. So we're hoping that just the factory shims will get us back to that 3/1000. But every carrier is gonna be a little bit different. So we'll just have to get it in there and test it and see. All right, well, Rob is going to get the bearings pressed on and I'm going to take the ring gear off of this carrier. All right, so we went through and we got the ring gear cleaned, all the oil cleaned out of there so the Loctite will stick good. We used WD-40 for that. We got the bolts cleaned up. With a wire brush, got all the old Loctite off of that. So now we're about to start putting it all together. I think Rob just made a good point that it would probably be easier to get the spool put in before we put the ring gear on. So that's what we're about to do now. All right, so we realized that we're gonna have to go ahead and put the ring gear on first, and we're gonna install this after we get it back into the Jeep because the C-clips for the axles have to go in. Once all this is in there, we're not gonna be able to get the C-clip in.
Yeah.
So now we're gonna look up the torque spec for the ring gear, get it put onto the carrier, and I guess put it in the axle and go ahead and set the backlash.
Yeah, try to get in there with the shims that we pulled it out with and check it. Hopefully it all goes together and we won't have to.
And then we'll check the backlash. And once the backlash is good, then we can worry about installing everything else, right?
Yeah, if the backlash is good, we can put the caps on, torque it down, and then just reinstall it, the way we took it apart. So
sweet.
Hopefully.
All right, so we got the carrier back into the housing. So now we need to tighten up on the caps and check our backlash again and see how close going back with the factory shims gets us. We got the carrier back in with the factory shims and it's like right on the money as far as being where it was before. We measured 3/1000 before we took the old carrier out, and with the new shims, or with reusing the old shims, this puts us right at the exact same mark.
So we're zeroed out there. Yep.
All right, so we got the carrier back in. We got lucky and used the factory shims that were in it, and the carrier settings pretty much matched up back to perfect. So 3/1000 backlash is what we ended up with on the old carrier and the new carrier. So now we just got to get the shaft slid in and get the spool put together and get the pin dropped in and get it all sealed up and put back together. So part of the installation on the mini spool requires you to modify the C-clip here. So basically it's got to be able to fit through this slot, and then once it's in, it'll sit kind of in that groove. so you can get the pin and the square pieces in. So I've taken a Sharpie, and so what we're going to do is basically grind everything from the black to the end, so the part that's shiny on each side here. So we're going to hit that with the grinder. Alright, so we grinded down the C-clip, and now you can see that it fits in this channel here. So it'll be able to sit, it'll be able to slide in there, clip into our axle, and then fit down into that little groove. Well, now that we are finished installing the spool, it's time to clean the mating surface of the pumpkin and the diff cover so we can reinstall the cover with some fresh RTV. All right, so that's gonna just about finish this up. We got the diff cover back on. I'm gonna let it set up for a minute. I'm not gonna wait the full 24 hours because I gotta get home today. So we're gonna let it sit up for a while. We got the brakes put back on and all that. So now I'm gonna put the tires on and then probably give about another hour on the RTV and then fill her up and head home. So I think overall it went pretty well. We got lucky. We didn't have to deal with the shims too much. So it made for a pretty easy job. So not too bad. Ready to test it out this weekend on the trail. So y'all have a good day. Subscribe to the channel and be looking out for more videos.